the Hijrah. And I say dear to my heart is that my concern is that we as Americans, we as non-Muslims do not know enough about this. And to me, that's scary. So I want to get into what I consider part 2 of the Hijrah. We talked about this a little while ago, about the Hijrah being a very real thing. It has to do with migration. It's just the word migration, migrate or migration. And it is the time that they say the Hijrah is where Islam started. It's Islam that says that, not me. They say that this is how they define the beginning. Everything is defined from the Hijrah. In fact, they define Islam, the beginning of Islam, as after Hijrah, AH. So we have to look at this. And again, this is a secret doctrine. They don't get into talking about what this really means. And that, it's something to really think about. Why do they do that? Because it's tied to their doctrine on jihad. Because you have to leave your country to get into an act of war, which, again, makes sense. But there's another element that's involved with this, and that is organization. And that is the big part of the topic today, organization in the Hijrah. And I had said before, I went to Europe in 2016. The big push into Europe was in 2015. You'd seen videos of mostly young military-aged men coming. I saw them in person. It's true. It's totally true. I have to say I did not expect to see that. I mean, I was kind of hoping I wouldn't see that, but that is what I saw. I was part of a fact-finding expedition on the Islamization of Europe. I was one of about 25 of us that went as part of the Middle East Forum's project. I went. Daniel Pipes was one of the leaders. It was fascinating. So this last book that I put out, The Cancer of Civilization Jihad, is a result of my experiences. So I want to get into this because, again, this whole I've been writing on the Hijrah for about 2 or 3 years before that. And now, after having seen that, I got a lot more into it. So let's talk about the organization aspect. And here we go. All right. So this is Ismail AlFarooqi. Ismail AlFarooqi is one of the great leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood. Keep that in mind. When I was in Europe, they kept saying, the national security agencies kept saying they believed the Muslim Brotherhood was behind the migration push that they saw, the incredible overflow. That's what they said. I asked, that's the answer they gave. I kind of expected that answer, but to actually hear it, I have to admit I was shocked. So Ismail AlFarooqi, by the way, is dead. He was murdered. Again, when you're part of a murder with an organization that has no problem with jihad, don't be surprised. Good night, Dragon. Thank you for joining us. All right, let's get into this. This is what he said. We are here to stay. This is what he said, by the way, in London in 1986. We are here to stay. We are here to plant Islam in this part of the world, and we must utilize everything in our power to make the word of Allah supreme in the presence of living here. We can become ambassadors of Islam. Allah has carved out a vocation for you, a new mission, and this mission is to save the West, to save the humanity of the West by converting that humanity to Islam. We want to live henceforth as if we are muhajirs, companions of Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. And so let's invest our hijrah with this new meaning. Now, I think it's actually very important, this Mecca to Medina thing, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but he goes on. Let us appoint ourselves as ambassadors of Islam in this country, and let us begin a program of real action. Eric, I know you're listening and you're muted, but I'm just curious. Do you have any thoughts on this statement? Oh, I'm guessing you might be busy. Oh, he's on the phone. I'm sorry. Oh, this is kind of shocking. Yeah, anybody who wants to join, the link is in there. Please do come join us. This, to me, when I heard this when I went back, I go and I check the original sources, and I do that for real serious reasons because I do want to get the facts. I don't want to get anything wrong. Now, Ismail AlFarooqi is part of the reason why I got into this, because it was his student that came to my area. His student, Dr. Muhammad Shafiq, who came to Rochester, New York, and took $500,000 and got it into Nazareth College. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So this is very personal to me. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't, but it's personal. All right. Let's think about these problems. Self-imposed segregation, separation from the native culture of a new country. This is again, he's talking about this. You have to keep separate. This is really, really problematic. Islamic requirements to organize in the United States. We see that in the first organization here in the United States as the Muslim Student Association. And then you see the Islamic Society of North America. We see CARE, IIIT, as they call themselves, the International Institute of Islamic Thought. There are at least 40 organizations that I can name that are all run by the Muslim Brotherhood within the United States. Now, right now, the head of CARE is thought to be the head of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. That's the thought. And, right now, is there evidence to prove that? There's signs, but is there evidence? Again, I say thought. It's not, at least I haven't seen anybody make a statement of proof. I had connected Jamal Berzinji as being the head of who I thought was the head of the Muslim Brotherhood. And you know who else agreed with me when we came at it from totally different directions? David Galbitz, when he wrote Muslim Mafia, that was his conclusion also. And I showed him why I believed it. I showed him all my research, and he said, you know what? You're right. And we just came about it in a different way. And I was like, and he explained to me I was doing something called social networking analysis before I even knew what I was doing. Take a look at this little picture over here. All right. They don't want democracy. It says we want just Islam. And that is in Dearborn, Michigan, right here in the States. Think about that. Problems. How about this next one? I'm going to blow this one up a bit. All right. And I got to get my mouse back. All right, here we go. This, I've been trying to figure out how to say this. Serja Trifkovic. He said in 2000, he said in 2002, and this is in a document called The Islamic Conquest of Britain. Now that's something to think about. The Islamic Conquest of Britain. That's what he wrote. In there, it says, this is an organized struggle to change the existing society into an Islamic society based on the Quran and the Sunnah, and make Islam, which is a code for entire life, supreme, dominant, especially in the socio-political spheres, that the ultimate objective of the Islamic movement shall not be realized unless the struggle is made by locals. For it is only they who have the power to change the society into an Islamic society. Again, that is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because the locals made it. I didn't get a choice, is how I feel about it. I did not get a choice. And yes, they are busy doing these things. All right, we'll go to this next one. Now, this one should shock you. Maududi, the Islamic scholar. This is the scholar that the jihadis like. This should make everybody concerned. Yes, they're citing him, and this is from 2007. These aims cannot be realized so long as power and leadership in society are in the hands of the disbelieving rulers, and so long as the followers of Islam continue themselves to worship disbelief. Sorry, let me go back or start again. These aims cannot be realized so long as power and leadership in society are in the hands of the disbelieving rulers, and so long as the followers of Islam confine themselves to worship rites only when the power is in the hands of the believers, the followers of Islam, and the righteous can the objectives of Islam be realized. So this has nothing to do with religion, people. It has to do with power and politics. That's what they're telling you. It doesn't matter that they worship Allah. It matters that they control. Are you catching this? It matters that they have power. It matters that they control your ability to do things and make choices. That's what their statement is here. Only when the power is in the hands of the believers and the righteous can the objectives of Islam be realized. It is therefore the primary duty of all those who aspire to please Allah to launch an organized struggle. You hear that again? Organization. This requirement. Sparing neither life, so they're going to kill you, is what they're saying. They don't care. Nor property for this purpose. This importance of securing power for the righteous is so fundamental that in neglecting this struggle, one has no means left to please Allah. Some of these things you sit there and go, how? Why? Well, I mean, yeah. And this one here makes you think. This one just, yeah. This is Professor H. Ali Khatani. And these are all out of Britain. All these quotes are coming from Britain. And there's a reason for that, with the exception of the last one. Professor H. Ali Khatani said, the secret of the Muslim communities, which have been able to survive across the centuries and generations, lies in one word: organization. This is part I'm kind of laughing about. Islam cannot survive if individual Muslims believe it is a personal affair. Oh, so doesn't that make Jesus so much more better? Doesn't that make him supreme? Isn't Allah, I mean, if Allah's not personal, that's what they're telling you. Allah's not a personal God. Forget him. You can forget him. It doesn't matter because he's not personal. Oh, so why do you worship him? That's what this guy says. I mean, again, if you make it a personal affair, something has to be seen, guys. So they're not concerned about their personal faith when they're talking about Islam. This is important to grasp. So let's continue. It says, when a group of Muslims is formed, the first thing they should do to keep Islam among themselves is to, again, here we are again, organize themselves on an Islamic basis. To keep Islam alive from one generation to another, they should establish two basic Islamic institutions, the mosque and the school. So they can't survive. So this is something else to think about. You know, I understand the purpose of a church as well. And I understand we don't necessarily need a Christian school if a lot of times the Christians are the ones teaching others. So, you know, in throughout history, as far as Christianity, the ones that were the most educated locally, and this is until, let's see, until recent history. I mean, maybe the 40s, maybe the 1900s, sometime in the 1900s, where it was the standard that the pastor was the most educated person in your community. this is for centuries this was going on. And what does that mean? I mean, if the pastor is most educated, you're going to him for a lot of the answers that you probably would if you had questions or stuff, but they have to have Islamic institutions. I get the concept of a worship center, but you can't count the mosque as that. There's a reason you can't. Its purpose is not just worship, and they don't have a personal God, as it says here, but Professor Katani says here. Again, these are not my words, they are his. This is something to think about, and it's something that should be thought about deeply. And I'm just going to go back here just a second. I think I need to get into, the joy of getting into things. I have to read a piece coming up. Okay. All right. So, oops. And okay, there's a piece I wanted to read here. Now, both Madudi and Katani express a belief that Islam alone is not able to keep a Muslim from straying. He needs to be organized into resistance to his new country and its government. That organization will not be viewed as successful until the day the government submits to Islam. Think about that. It's not successful until the government of the place they moved into accepts their faith. So the only reason they're coming is to change the government and make it like the one they just left, because either they were afraid of it or they left it to commit an act of treason or terrorism upon the new place. So this is deeply concerning. So I'm going to play a video coming up next. Many of you have seen this video. It bothers me every time I see it. It bothers me. You're going to see why. And here we go. And I might...
Can we have the camera? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience, sir? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience? Because every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker... Can we have the camera? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience, sir? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience? Because every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc., etc. It's the same old stuff coming all the time. And we always try to tell them, I always try to tell them that, look, it's not that speaker that we're inviting who has these extreme radical views, as you say. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Just because they're not telling you about it, or just because they're not out there in the media, doesn't mean they don't believe in them. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands. Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, take down your hands again. How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands.
Sisters in particular.
Everyone agree. Everyone agree. The brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. So it's not just these radical sheikhs then. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah whether it is death, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind. And that is what we should apply in the world. Well, who agrees with that? Allahu Akbar. Are you all radical extremists? Subhanallah. So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims, you all go to the different masajid Norway, or are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that? Are you like that? No. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you're like this extreme Islam net sect or anything like that. No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to these normal masajids in Norway, the normal Sunni mosque? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar. So what's the politicians gonna say now? What's the media gonna say now? That we're all extremists? We're all radicals? We need to deport all of us from this country? Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Takbir! Takbir! Takbir!
With Sharia. They are okay with killing apostates. They're all okay with, and this was done, I have to go back and take a quick look at the beginning of that video. That I believe this was done in a northern region in Europe. And that really bothers me when I think that that was their intent, their purpose, and they've achieved it. This stuff gets to me when I look at these things and they say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is acceptable behavior. And, you know, that should make us think, if that's what they're saying, that's what's acceptable, something's up. I have, you know, I'm looking at this stuff and I'm seeing this is what's going on now. We have national security organizations that refuse to look at their purpose, their intent. And I blame a lot of this on President George W. Bush, because it was his policy that did not allow the national security agencies, the FBI, the intelligence analysts, to look at Islam as a problem. His statement that Islam is not the problem created a policy that disallowed intelligence analysts to look into Islam as the problem. So now they couldn't even explain terrorism, Islamic terrorism. They could not explain Islamic terrorism.